I know a lot of you are very excited for Marvel Studios Spider-Man 3, especially with the recent set videos and photos that are going around. And I'm going to be doing a video actually talking about as to what's going on in those scenes. And I also do have some other videos that I'm working on where I'm going to reveal the new potential love interest for Peter Parker Spider-Man for his college years, as well as a look at a Spider-Man script revisions in which I will give a link for people to read only on the fan support page. And the issue I have is with Jon Watts as the director. I will admit that when I first found out that he was directing a Spider-Man film, I was very happy because his film Clowns reminded me very much of Sam Raimi's style. And I remember telling that to John when I first met him and Tom Holland on the set of Spider-Man Homecoming. I wonder if that's the reason as to why he was hired, especially since Kevin Feige loves director Sam Raimi, because they worked together in Spider-Man 3 and once again are going to be working together for Doctor Strange 2. And the differences between Sam Raimi and Jon Watts is that Sam is very passionate about Spider-Man and is very good at storytelling, character development, and action, especially in all of his films, which is vital to making a successful comic film. To me, Jon Watts obviously has never taken his time to seriously do his research on these characters or read the comics. He most likely glanced at a few comic panels or looked up things on Wikipedia, especially with what he stated about how he wants to avoid the with great power comes great responsibility aspect for Peter Parker, because he wants the characters to have fun, which is the exact opposite of his character traits. If you take that away from him, then that's no longer Peter Parker Spider-Man. And we also witnessed that in Spider-Man Homecoming when Peter had no consequences for every action and everything turned out fine. And look, I'm not going to repeat as to what those actions are because I will sound like a broken record, and I've covered this a million times in many of my past videos. Most importantly is the character development, which is missing not only with Peter Parker, but with Michelle Jones as well. And in the past versions of the Spider-Man films, we know about the characters, especially Peter Parker's love interest. We know the origins, it was fully explained. And, this time around, we know nothing about Peter Parker's origins, nor Michelle Jones. It's been 2 films already, no explanations as to who these characters really are. So how do you expect the general audiences to have a care in the world for these characters who are basically a mystery? Yes, we know that something happened to Uncle Ben, but let me remind you all that Uncle Ben is the main reasons and motivations as to why Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man, yet the MCU version is Tony Stark. He's a new version of the Uncle Ben. And the thing is that Peter never mentions Uncle Ben, like as if the character is Voldemort, as in he who should not be named, which is ridiculous. We don't even know how the Spider-Bite happened either. Yes, we have seen what happened to Uncle Ben in the past and the Spider-Bites, but it was different in the Raimi and Webb version, so it's obvious so is the Watts version, but it was never explained. And I'm also sick and tired of these villains being Iron Man villains first when they should be Spider-Man villains. And they seriously need to have Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man come out from the shadows of Tony Stark. It's getting really annoying now. Even after the character died, he's still there. Once again, I don't have an issue with Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man, because in the hands of the Russo brothers, they know how to handle Spider-Man perfectly, way better than Jon Watts. The character, the dialogue, everything is just absolutely friggin' perfect. And Tom Holland has what it takes to become the definitive version of Peter Parker Spider-Man, but it's too late. Because what happens in the MCU stays in the MCU, and he'll always be known as Iron Boy Jr. that always has to rely on Stark Tech to get the job done. I'm sorry, that ain't fucking Spider-Man. Okay? And back to Michelle Jones. We don't know shit about her, other than the fact that she's a loser type that has no friends, who's pretty much a loner, that has something against the government, which is really annoying, that stalks Peter Parker, which is creepy, and not at all attractive. Even though writer John Francis Daly confirmed that he wrote the character as a reimagining of Mary Jane Watson, Michelle Jones has 0 character traits of that character from basically every different iteration from the comics and the games. Nothing at all. Zippity doo-dah. Zendaya can look very attractive, but they have her looking like a damn Muppet or like a homeless person, so what the fuck gives? What really pisses me off until this very day is that everyone still shits on Sam Raimi's version of Mary Jane Watson, who's played by Kirsten Dunst, and gives a free pass to Michelle Jones as MJ, and her character is nothing like the character from the comics, nor is she attractive, and she's just an annoying, obnoxious character. Yet I 100% fucking guarantee that if this version was not part of the MCU, and another reboot from Sony, fans, especially the MC Marvel apologists, would give her way more hell than they gave Shailene Woodley's MJ, because some of the set photos that were released, and pretty much she was without makeup, and you know, people started freaking out and panicking and started saying really fucked up shit. And look, my main issue with Shailene's version of MJ is that it was going to be based on the Gwen Stacy Ultimate Rebel type of character instead of the 616 classic character, and it obviously has nothing to do with race. Yet people love to pull the race card bullshit if you dislike Zendaya's version of Michelle Jones, when clearly the legit fan base who've been reading these comics since childhood understand how vital it is to give Mary Jane Watson character justice, because obviously some people weren't happy with Kirsten Dunst's version, and there are morons out there who are claiming that they prefer Zendaya's version, which gives more justice to the character Mary Jane Watson than Kirsten Dunst did, and makes my fucking blood boil, because on what fucking planet is that in any way accurate, when Zendaya's version of that character is nowhere close to any iteration of Mary Jane Watson in any way, shape, or form? I mean, look, for fuck's sake, her character is named Michelle Jones, not Mary Jane Watson, and what part of that do you not understand? Look, you can bitch and complain about the minor things about Kirsten's version, about how they got it wrong in the first one, because apparently, you know, Mary Jane and Peter Parker were not supposed to be like knowing each other, and that we all know the story about how, you know, he really didn't want to meet her. Her aunt tried setting, you know, Peter up with MJ, but then he refused to, and then all of a sudden he opens the door and there she is. And apparently in the Sam Raimi version it was different. You know what? Who fucking cares? Because Zendaya's version is way fucking left field. And they seriously need to lay off that kryptonite crack, okay? Because what they're saying is complete fucking utter bullshit. And look, back in the day, people loved Tom McGuire and Kirsten Dunst so much, the majority of the people that I know were going around using the great thing about MJ's speech with their girlfriends. I've seen it so many fucking times happen, blasting the Nickelback Hero song. And look, that iconic upside down kiss from the first film won Best Kiss of the Year at the MTV Awards. What fucking award did Zendaya and Tom Holland win for that cheesy pee-pee caca kiss they did in fucking Far From Home? Nothing. At least the attempted upside down kiss in the elevator scene from the first film was at least comical. And by the way, I will never forget on how Sony fucked over Laura Harrier, who by the way I think is a way better actress than Zendaya Kardashian. You know, when they were trying to promote the film, and instead of using Tom and Laura, they used Tom and Zendaya, when their character was barely in the fucking film. And Laura was the fucking love interest. I mean, that was really fucked up. And look, if you know your history of the character in the same way that I do, you will realize that Sam Raimi did his research properly for Kirsten Dunst's version of that character. So why is this important? Well, because I found an interview from John Watts that seriously made my fucking blood boil, and a prime example as to why you cannot trust John with Spider-Man films, and he's definitely going to fuck up the Fantastic Four. What he stated is a direct slap in the face of Stan Lee as well. And I'm going to play the interview, and I'm going to discuss my reaction to it. I'm also going to discuss specifically as to how Sam Raimi nailed the true character aspects of Kirsten Dunst's version of Mary Jane Watson, and why this will be the closest you will ever get to the 616 version of MJ.
Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot.
Woo!